All right, well, welcome to Talent Grind Live, Mr. Alex Mann. How are you?
Mr. Doran, how are we doing?
Well, my dog started barking, so we'll see. We'll see if Willow's going to allow us to have a nice live stream or not. Doing well, my friend. Where? What part of the world are you in now?
I'm
Got your
in
Are
90
you in Are you in APAC now? Maybe in Hong
No,
Kong or Singapore? Hong Kong or
no, I
Singapore or
wish.
something?
I was in Stockholm and I was in Nashville, Tennessee, and I've been in Florida last month. But I'm currently situated in 90-degree Fahrenheit, New York City today.
Ah,
It's hot.
back to NYC.
Yes, yes, yes. And you are in the East Bay in your office.
In the East Bay in my office, wishing I had a Shack membership. So I believe that Talentful is having their higher altitude summit. It's so interesting. I see what a lot of different people are doing, and it seems like the number one way to get new clients is to host large experience events.
Yeah, I mean, I'd vouch for that. Having been trying to figure out how to coordinate those kinds of things. Um, what's interesting? I spoke to the folks at Talent Collective about this, and uh, they would organize breakfasts or dinners in cities for your brand or your company. I mean, for a punchy price, but they would like get you 20, 30, 40 talent acquisition leaders in a room. Now, if you could close a couple of them, it would pay for the party. You know what I mean?
I think that maybe is what Glenn Lindley is doing then.
Is he run it like for a talent collective or
Yeah,
just like
yeah. Well, he's got his own thing, so he's running events up here in the or out here in the Bay. I think I might start to coordinate with him for some East Bay events because he's got a lot down in the peninsula in the valley,
yeah,
and I think maybe even in SF. Um,
makes sense.
it's
Although when
hard. I
I
get in a hermit mode, and then I've got to force myself out of my home office, and then when I do, I'm always very happy about that.
yeah, yeah, I don't doubt it. But I do think that there is an element of how to be creative about those kinds of events because I think everyone's doing breakfasts and dinners now that I think talent acquisition professionals are a bit overfed at the moment and need something different. So if you can, if you're able to like think differently about those events, and I had this chat with the folks at Talent Collective, and we kind of were chatting about it that like I think a lot of because everybody wants to speak to TA leaders, you know what I mean, in-house leaders, obviously, you know, from your side, from my side. And I think they're all going to breakfasts and they're all going to free dinners. And I think they're a bit like, anything else, please?
Yeah, yeah. It's interesting. It's just this re-emergent world after COVID. I think is still being reformed, and a lot of what worked in the past just does not work anymore. You know.
Well, I think the key word is just work. I actually had lunch today with somebody, and they're hiring an entry level comms person,
Wow.
and they were like in New York City, where you think that would be an easy kind of role to fill,
Yeah,
you
that
know.
would say that would be a hot job that you could easily fill.
And he was like, just the quality of pipeline is like terrible, and I was like, why? And he's like, either kids don't want to work or they want to get paid a load of money. They ask about overtime if they work at the weekend or like after 7 o'clock, you know, and all you want is somebody with some good attitude that like will make it. You know what I mean? Like, and it's, yeah. And the word work has been on my mind. um, but yeah, man, it's been 2 weeks since we've done one of these. That's like the longest break we've had since we started this in March. We
I
did
think,
this in
yeah,
March.
no, yeah, I'm still trying to get into the operating tempo. You'll notice I put out the March 25th episode this week, so that is hot and is dropped. I've got to do a lot more editing, and I need to get a lot more things going. It's just been pretty hectic. Clients coming on, clients going off, lots of other things. Nothing too kind of major, but
Yeah.
generally, I still feel like we're floating in the ether, and taking a look at an article that came out that I pinged you over the weekend. Uh, it seems 2025 is fucked. I don't know. What do you think, Alex?
Is this the Wall Street Journal article that says the headline, the US economy is headed towards an uncomfortable summer?
Yes.
Companies are freezing hiring and investment to deal with the shifting tariff policies.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, you know, it's interesting. Because, I've been on the market for 6 weeks. When I say on the market, I have not been in a job for 6 weeks. And my personal anecdote on this, in the state of the market is that it seems to me that given the relative senior positions that I would look for, that there is plenty of roles in that. And I speculate that I work in technology, so there's probably a lot there in AI companies because obviously they're all trying to grow and they're looking for growth people like me. But it's an interesting one because I'm obviously cocooned in a bubble. But then I look at the labor report that came out and jobs are down this time versus last year. And I see a headline like that in the Wall Street Journal, and I'm like, yeah, we've been talking about this for months. Like we have been objectively, if you were to say the historical record of the
Yeah.
episodes that we've put
Since
out,
March.
we have been talking about that. And even before that, before we even went live, it seems to have been like the topic du jour. And I guess now it's gaining mainstream credence,
Yeah. So,
and
so to summarize for our audience, the U.S. economy has avoided the past recession scares, but the summer is facing renewed uncertainty. While growth is remaining steady, adding around 139,000 jobs by May, and unemployment around 4%, underneath their surface, which is what we always talk about it. People who've got some understand of the nuances and complexity of the labor market understand that that low number is total horseshit.
yeah,
It's not measuring the population that have given up and fallen out of the employment labor pool. It doesn't really count the people who are underemployed, people who are like driving DoorDash, driving Lyft, things like that. Which is really they're saying more around 25%. But the unfortunate part is that businesses are hitting pause in hiring investment due to shifting policies and policy uncertainty, and it's essentially tariffs. I was hopeful that he would be very focused on business, but it continues just to be the complete. It's just a shit show of dysfunction that I think is market manipulation for people with big pots. Do you play poker at all, Alex?
sometimes
Do you know what happens when you've got the heavy hand in poker?
you buy your
When
time
you've got all the money,
when you got what do you just buy your time?
you just beat the shit out of other players. You ante up every single, you hit every single, you do nonstop pressure, whether you're bluffing or whether you've got a hand. You can complete, I've done it in online poker, you can completely
Yeah.
dominate other players. You know,
Um,
and I feel that unfortunately, everything that we're going through, it's disrupting our economy for nefarious purposes, and it's it's like in that scene in Casino. You're either in on it or you're too stupid to know about it. Either way, we can't work
correct.
together. You've got to go.
I think it comes down to like, business is smart and business hates uncertainty.
Yeah,
And I would say, you know, it's kind of we live in a two-tier economy, first and foremost. You got software and you got everything else. I mean, if you're to look at the S&P and go take out the fangs out of the S&P and look at the performance of the S&P, they're all pretty much like flatlined. And so when it comes to tech, like tech hiring, tech firing, like it is wild because obviously tech's been in a weird kind of quasi recession for the last 2.5 years where there's been just an extraordinary amount of, job loss in that space. But there's also a lot of new job hiring in that space. But I think going back to there's the anecdote I mentioned in a couple of weeks ago in our episode that like I had a call with a recruiter from a supply chain manufacturing business somewhere in the Midwest, and he had come on to see Ellie, and I was excited to get him on the phone. I was like, "Oh yeah, this couple thousand people work at this place. Like this is the kind of product that's like, perfect for him, like slam dunk." And he's like, "Oh, I'm just like, window shopping." And I was like, "Oh, would you mind me asking why?" And he was like, "Well, diktat from up top is that like not only are we not investing in recruiting this year, we're not even investing in any capital infrastructure this year, and like for manufacturing, and he specifically said like because of the tariffs, and I get it because it's manufacturing and their supply chain business, but like the downstream impact of that is that for people to be hired, there need to be jobs, and this company, because of the uncertainty, is just not hiring. And you know, there is no rhyme or reason, obviously, to a lot of the stuff that we're witnessing. It's like busy work for the sake of being busy work. It's different for the sake of being different, and it's anything different to the last regime for sure. But it is wild to me that it doesn't matter if it's like high stakes, high salaried roles to entry level hourly work. There's just a weird underlying flatlining of work that I think, to your point, is not necessarily reflected in sort of the data, in the sense that it seems much worse than it is. If we were to say, as professionals within the talent acquisition space, that there seems to be a dearth of jobs and a dearth of talent across the board in the country.
Right, which is what the Wall Street Journal says. There's three main risks that are looming: labor market fragility, firms are holding on to workers but may cut quickly if demand softens; consumer spending, there's rising delinquencies, suggests low income households are stretched thin, which could trigger a pullback; and financial shocks, high borrowing costs or stock market dips could reduce investment and spending. So we got all
Yeah.
these different things that are kind of merging at the same time. Companies are cutting back. People are moving into fractional contract type of roles. Companies are not hiring. I know somebody who is a two-time founder who's in the final stages of like a kind of a senior AI type of role, who's in the 13th step of the interview process right now, which is including another 2.5 an hour conversation with the CEO.
Yeah.
And he's in process with a number of other like pretty substantial, and people are just dragging it out.
It's interesting you say that because I spoke to somebody recently and they got a job at a big bank here in New York. And I was like, how long was the interview process? And he goes, 7 months. And I was like, what? Like, and it's like, there's a different kind of jeopardy to hiring for those roles. Like, they are not looking at urgency for talent in a way that if you work in software, you're looking at urgency for talent. They're just looking at, like, how do we minimize risks as much as possible with a hire? And thus being able to afford to take that much time to hire somebody, leaning into the business prestige or whichever. But it just blows my mind, like I think I'm very curious, and I think I say this a lot, that it's just like there are jobs to be done. And I think, at will employment is a phenomenal gift that America has. It's a double-edged sword, obviously, first it giveth, then it taketh away. But like you can hire fast and you can hire quickly here. I just am like in my head, there's this weird perversity in hiring post-COVID in America where there's such a culture of firing that exists now, that it's like bad smell, fire. Bad joke in the office didn't land with everyone, fire. And I feel like there's this weird fear that it's going to take in off across the board. Maybe I'm speaking for myself. Maybe I'm speaking for everyone because
I'm
we might be
telling
so.
you, you're speaking to you're speaking to the people here, Alex. Because
Yeah.
as you're talking, what I'm thinking in my head is like it's time for the revolution. But the revolution, it's not between red and blue; it's between small and large, right? It's the worker and the conglomerate, right? It's small businesses versus large companies.
Yeah.
We're most likely going to be open sourcing all of our technology and following that trend.
But
Um,
I mean, in the sense of like, look, if you're an employee and you're looking for a job, okay. One of the weird things I've been thinking about recently is I've had people say to me, I've had a couple of chats with a couple of founders about potentially working for them. And they're like, "Oh, you seem to have changed jobs a few times." And I'm like, should I push back and say to that person, go, "Dude, do you want me to sign do you want to sign a contract, a covenant that you will keep me for 3 years?" You know what I mean? Like, do you get that back on the other side? You know what I mean? Everybody has a job, everybody has a story to tell. And I'm like, the question of loyalty within the space,
Yeah.
especially in software, I mean, it doesn't exist.
Yeah,
It's just like,
I'd
dude,
love to
like get out.
address that actually because
Yeah, go
there's
for
a
it.
lot of talk about that, like in terms of jumpiness in between jobs. And as
Yeah,
someone who's a recruiter for over 25 years, let me tell you, like having bias against someone because of the length of time between their jobs is shows your naivete about how business works. It's not about why they were not there for a long period of time or why they were not a fit for much of the business as it is a matter is are they the right fit for your business and culture.
correct.
You don't know what that company and team was like. You don't know what was happening in that business at that moment. I knew a team. I knew a guy who worked on a team at Google that was so successful. They were so hyped to work at Google. They were working on this big initiative. They got it done 8 months under budget, and Google laid them all off, just ended their
Yeah,
contract. Like they were so successful, they thought they would get converted. No, hey, thanks, you guys saved us a ton of money. Appreciate it. Hope you
yeah.
enjoy. Hope you
Th-
enjoyed the experience.
Thanks for the memories.
Yeah,
Yeah,
thanks
it's
for the
wild.
memories. And that's business, right? And so, like, I'm not biased against you because you were, at one place for 2 years and then the next three places for 6 to 8 months. It just meant that you fit in well with that culture for 2.5 years, and you haven't found that since.
Yeah,
And can I
agreed.
offer you something that's similar to that, or are we operating similar to that, or not? That's ultimately
Totally.
what you need to get to. You know?
Totally. I just that was a bit of a unique insight I've noticed over the last like couple of weeks. I'm like, oh, interesting that people still look at it this way versus like, this is a story
It's
to be told.
naivete. It's
Yeah,
bias. It's bias. Like
yeah,
you only want them if they've worked for like these top companies or went to these top universities. Like 9 times out of 10, it's just because of like the station in life that they were born to. That does
yeah.
not necessarily equate who's going to be like a dynamic individual that can be transformative for your business, which if you're a leader is what you should be looking for.
I
Right?
think do you think as well that like especially given how tight the hiring market seems to be now?
Yeah.
And just given like that headline, the U.S. economy is headed towards an uncomfortable summer is such an understatement. That like we've become on the spectrum of AI when it comes to managing companies too focused on AI optimization. Like we've overcorrected for
Fuck
AI.
no, dude. I think it's more a matter of like right place, right time, right knowledge, right being able to act. Because like I have often felt very behind the eight ball, but then my partner pinged me a link the other day to something that's agentic and is
Yes.
brand new, like brand fucking new. And I said, is this similar to so and so? And he's like, no, this is brand new, like within it's another MCP update. It just kind of makes things even further. It just equalizes it. You know what I mean? So now it's kind of coming to, I think, handcrafted software that works so well that it just like it fits your hand like a well-worn glove.
But I mean in the sense that like, so you're saying that companies might not have overcorrected because there's that other article that we were like in our list for things to talk about, for example, and it's from the New York Times, and it's like for some recent grads, the AI job apocalypse may already be here. And we've kind of hinted at that, where it's like there's a lot of jobs that are being posted. There's a lot of jobs that have like an enormous demand of people, an enormous supply of candidates. And but like job for graduates, like the unemployment rate for job graduates is like what 0.5x larger than the actual national average, and it typically isn't that case. And it's like AI is automating a lot of those jobs away,
But
and
you
they're
you
obviously not
all
going to
like
come
the
back.
thing is with AI is you still need quality control and refinement and the decision to make the decision of when something is done. Those are
Yeah,
all important qualities that a human being brings into a quality control checkpoint. So for me, and like with the way that we've set up our platform, and even when we were started working with OpenAI in like 2022, it was to use a series of quality control checkpoints of the human and the AI working together to come up with um, the most optimal response, right?
yeah,
And then ultimately taking that experience, automating the human out of it, building into a platform, and delivering it to an end user
yeah.
efficiently and easily, without them having to be like a fucking Silicon Valley operations person to be able to use it.
Very fair. And I get that. And I totally believe the agentic agents that are kind of UX-less in the sense that like where they live doesn't matter, whether it's in Slack or whether it's in Teams, whether it's like something under the hood for the whole company to use. 1,000% believe in that. People don't even need to know how it works. You know what I mean? But like when you see something like Klarna say where we might have made a mistake with over indexing on AI for like our hiring and our employee retention and looking to rehire a swath of new people. I speculate that like, as much as that Wall Street Journal article says headed for an uncomfortable summer, I think it's like my take on that is it's the uncomfortable realization that oh no, we may have over indexed on the our ability to execute on AI tools or agents to get us to a point where we don't need to hire as many people. And so we'll have a pendulum swing back that actually we need more personnel in the company.
Yeah, yeah. Well, but then it goes back to our original thesis, which I kind of feel like is the thesis for this show. Like join talent grind on the journey from 1,010 to 100,000 person companies to a
Yeah.
hundred to 100,000 person companies, right?
And
Like what we have the opportunity to do now. If you're wondering, well, where does business go from here? Focus on the companies that you're building, the that unique group of individuals that you're pulling together to accomplish your task. It matters more now than I think it ever has. I think there's more of an importance to do on site interviews and to spend time in person with people.
that is an interesting one.
Oh,
Let's talk
yeah.
about that. Let's talk about that
I
because
feel
I
AI
actually
is
I saw a tweet about this yesterday. And then somebody was like, "What the fuck? I'm not going to an in person unless you pay me." And I was like, "Dude, you clearly have not worked before 2019. Or before COVID. You obviously clearly didn't know." Well, we had to sneak out of the office, figure out the fastest way to somebody's office, and then under cloak and dagger, like under the dark of the night, not be seen by somebody going into somebody's office.
or
And
go
I'm
do a
curious
telephone
because
interview in your car in some parking lot of an office complex, like a couple of office complexes away from your company. Like
exactly,
I've done that so many times, like you've
it
no idea.
scratched me up.
No, I mean, it's like, or just getting out and walking circles around like some random parking lot somewhere while I'm on an interview with somebody. Yeah, like, yeah.
Uh,
I mean,
man, I remember I did an interview at Box maybe in like 2016 or 17, some way back when. And they're down in, is it Los Altos or Palo
Los
Alto?
Altos,
Whichever.
yeah.
Yeah. I didn't even know to get there. I didn't even, I was like, okay. So I got an Uber pool back when Uber pool was a thing. And we like zigzagged our way. About four different people were picked up on the way down from SF. And I was like, I don't know how I'm going to pull this off. Like, how, are people going to know that not at the office? You know what I mean? I was like too proud to like take a day off because when you take a day, and it's weird the little micro emotions you used to have in the office. Like, if I take a day off, people will know that I'm looking for another job. Especially in like fast-paced Silicon Valley jobs of the pre-COVID era. You know what I mean? It's like he's obviously interviewing somewhere else. Um, yeah, no, that's funny. This has triggered a memory of mine. But like in-person interviews now, like interesting because do you think that's something that may turn off candidates, like add friction to your thing, to
Not
your.
if you want to build a successful career with a good company. I think
Oh yeah,
people. I
no,
think
I get
people.
that, but
I think it got
I'm
so easy that people lost sight of like how transformative like having a good job in America, having a good job with good benefits can be.
yeah,
Like I'm overdue for some dental work, and I because I put everything into my business, and we found out because my wife works in San Francisco, we have access to a whole other pool of free money, thousands of dollars that we can use for healthcare related expenses. That's transformative. It's going to allow me to get a lot of things to get done that I need to get done. And I think big tech during the ZERP era just brought a lot of people into the tent and got them super spoiled. And they
yeah,
really weren't part of the struggle to get there that some of the early tech people were, or people who work with startups like get in a different way. That's why a lot of sometimes startups don't want people from FANG companies. They'll only
yeah.
consider people from FANG companies if they've worked in another startup. Like if you knew how many times I've asked people in an interview, so do you have experience going from 0 to 1? This is very different building something from
Yeah.
scratch than coming into like a system that's already been built and oh well let me optimize it based upon what I've seen work at these companies in my experience. And it's funny because
The
even
inverse is
even when
also true, though.
what?
Like the inverse is also true that at Fangs, that they're almost like less likely to hire somebody from outside. I was speaking to somebody recently out of Fang, and they're like, "Oh, this role is posted internally." That kind of means it's kind of for people internally to transfer and apply into inside the company. And I was like, oh, very, very interesting, very, very interesting. They're like, yeah, like typically at this level, like at the L6 level, say, and higher, that they don't typically hire from the outside, which
Yeah.
is also interesting.
Well, yeah, because you need someone who needs an innate, deep understanding of your business that you're most likely not going to get unless they come maybe from a direct competitor. And
Yeah,
that makes sense to me because like I would want senior people in my organization to have been there and known the business,
yeah,
for quite a while. Like it's kind of a trip as a recruiter going back through your network. You see people like you hired 15 years ago and they're still at that company. You're like,
yeah.
whoa, you know. First of all, you're lucky. You still have been working through this period of crap. But yeah, I just still feel like we're in the transition here. But I do still believe ultimately this is going to lead to a lot more opportunity. And I think a lot of even maybe ZERP era SaaS leaders who raised a lot of money and people think are the darlings of the scene right now are right to be completely disrupted. Like the more and more I read about the open source movement and open source business models, I realize truly how powerful they are.
Oh, I mean, man, like, there are certain SaaS companies that I admire, and I admire like their marketing in particular. And I'm like, they're just going to get completely upended by an OpenAI wrapper because they're charging thousands of dollars a year per seat.
Or they're
You know?
just a feature on another platform that someone
Yeah,
optimizes and does as well as they do, if not better. I mean, if you think about it, the entire internet is the ultimate second mover advantage contraption designed for perpetual iteration.
yeah. But I mean, like, look at say like Otter or Fireflies, okay?
Sure.
Like OpenAI released their own call recorder for notes now,
Right. They were features on their platform.
which is like, and they're amazing products, but
Sure.
like fundamentally now they're an OpenAI feature. Gemini is built into Google Hangouts. I mean, all those products are like dead in the water almost now. I don't say that, I think that's kind of harsh, obviously, but like you got to be more than the feature that you are now, and it's like, what else can you be, And I find that fascinating when I think of companies like the size of Gong. It's a couple $100 million ARR business, records sales calls, gives sales insights. And
That's
I'm
a
like,
feature.
I'm pretty certain that like something like OpenAI or Gemini you can build, like there will be enough flexibility built into those call recording
Which is why
products.
you need systems for individuals that individuals can train, that they can then feed the data into systems of record. It's essentially what I'm.
Explain.
It's
So
essentially what I'm
if
building.
there's people listening to this conversation, explain that in English.
But the thing, like, if it's just this insanity, I feel like I'm the only person in the world who understands that. Maybe either I'm the stupidest person in the world,
You're not stupid
or I do have a unique oversight. Why is everybody building software for businesses?
because they're likely to pay for it, and consumer is just such a crapshoot.
Right, but you're putting all your money and resources into something that ultimately is going to be a feature on someone else's platform.
Well, I would also stress that, like, I was very perplexed. No pun on perplexity. I was very perplexed seeing OpenAI build a call recording feature as hot a product idea they would have had internally. I'm like, dudes, let that to the rest of the companies and just let them use your LLM. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know if you need to play in that sandpit because now it's like, are they going to come after Google Docs next? Are they going to,
Well, see,
any
that's what
business?
I mean. Like you're getting to the
Is
point where
OpenAI a B? Is OpenAI a B2B SaaS company now?
well,
You know what I mean? I'm like,
we're
what?
building to a future of individuality where people will be able to build their own technical frameworks and structures that they control, utilizing services and devices that they integrate into it, and that can give you a competitive advantage based upon your knowledge. Right?
Okay, so yeah, yeah.
If everybody uses Otter and you find like Zotter, ZOTR.ai, which is like, it's like the anti Otter. It's going to completely open source everything Otter does and kick Otter's ass. It's way better. It's free. You can self host it. You can throw it up on your server. It gives you all this functionality. And then you can tie in whichever LLM you want. You've got long term memory, so you can sit there and refine it. You then create a nice looking UI wrapper over that and start selling that. Like that's where we're at.
Yeah, I mean, but I also think like that goes back to what you were saying earlier, the original thesis that long gone are the days of the 10,000 person company. And you can build features into products and drive revenue for your small company that is materially impactful for you. And again, you go back to recruiting. Like, if you, like, let's say, okay, like, you've done how many interviews in your entire career? 10,000?
At
20,000?
least at least 10 or 20,000, I would think.
Okay, yeah. Imagine you had all that documented.
I know.
Imagine what that could tell you about things. Like, and this is where I think recruiting companies are not, I saying that they're fucked is not true. It's more like, oh my God, get your shit together. You have so
Well,
much data. Like if you're Corn Ferry, a multi-billion-dollar business, okay, and you know what I mean, and you interview, imagine the level of insight that they could have and thus repackage and sell to clients because of what they can see, the insight that they could potentially have. And you don't
but
need to
they
have
also have a ton of
20,000 people.
first mover tech debt
Well,
and
that's the point I'm making. They
sunk
just, they
cost
just,
fallacy.
they just can't build it. Like there's just no way. So if you're bottoms up in the way that we're talking about you, okay, which is like you can build a stack from the ground up that is AI native. That is where the winners are going to be. Like I look at something like Workday, and I go, or Workday or these large HRISs, and I go, like, on what planet do we see them really making it another 10 years? Because unless
They'll
they rip out their business from the ground up and turn it AI first, like
they'll
large
just
companies,
shrink until a PE firm buys them and rolls them up
well,
into
yeah,
something else.
exactly. But like someone's going to come up and create a really awesome ATS product, like a really good one. Like someone somewhere is going to do it, and someone's going to build the whole
Cool.
process from sourcing, vetting, scheduling,
Cool.
interview, and stitch it all together with AI. You are
Cool.
exactly.
No, cooler.
Is Oh, cool. I do see you hype them on LinkedIn quite frequently. You're a hype man.
Credit
Are
where
they
credit,
building?
credit. No, it's credit where credit's due, bro.
Okay, let me
You can
check.
set. You can separate the interview feedback from the scores, and you can have your interview teams come into a blind debrief, and you can share the scores at the same time, and then
Yeah.
you can drive a conversation. And it's the only ATS in the market that allows you to do that. And so that means that you can holistically have, you can use the ATS for every single step of a really comprehensive talent scaling system, like
Yeah, which is
that you would
good.
see, in place at Amazon or Google, right? Which I think is like, that's the ultimate. Like most businesses would emulate Amazon or Google for their hiring practices.
The pricing isn't bad at all
No,
for startups. Oh,
no,
it's paid annually. So okay.
yeah,
So,
but it's still pretty reasonable, and it was built by recruiters. But see, that's, it's a
yeah.
system of record, right? That's ultimately a system of record for companies.
Yes, it's just a database.
But people, individuals need their own tools too, and at a certain point, people are going to figure it out. Like this would be so much easier if I just had my own system.
Well, that goes back to what we were talking about before about all the AI smuggling, where people are testing out different AI tools
It should
to
just be about
literally
the
how
effect.
does
What's the end
yeah,
result? What's the end
just trying to do
result?
your job better. That's it.
Do you give the best looking decks with the most pertinent use of data? Are you able to do it like more efficiently, like in a quarter of the time that it took before? Are you able to help us move faster? Like with my client Minnow, they got where they were because every single time they like raised a new round or got some money, and the board was like, okay, how fast can you bring this talent on? They're like, fast.
Yeah.
And so the board then gets confident, oh, these guys have got recruiting figured out. The minute they get money, they can go. And like, and then you develop a reputation for being good at recruiting, right? And then that
Yeah.
starts to build a buzz about your business. Like recruiting is a fundamental like chaos agent that it can be either beneficial to elevate and you lift your business, or it's like a hurricane, completely destroy your business from the inside.
Yeah. Well, I mean, destroying your business from the inside is a bit. Is that a bit like how? You mean because
If it
bad
becomes a, I
hiring?
mean, if it becomes a complete shit show and you've got a recruiter who doesn't know what they're doing, or they're just a weak recruiter and they've got a hiring manager who doesn't know what they're doing, and then they're overloaded, and then the pressure keeps getting heaped on the manager's shoulders, and then there's lots of bickering back and forth and blaming, and then the opening goes 120 days, 150 days, 180 days,
Yeah.
and then it's just, and then like that's when they bring someone like me in, and then I fill it within 45 days, because
Yeah.
it's just about really listening to the hiring manager. Like I've got one right now, he's rejected 4 out of 5 people that I submitted to him, so I'm gonna have to meet with him tomorrow and listen very carefully for exactly what he's looking for, and then go find it for him. It's,
Unicorns.
huh?
Unicorns.
They just, you have to like learn to see it from the way they see it.
Yeah.
That's ultimately what it comes down to. Like, what are the sure bet companies that you, like? I got you somebody from this very notable e-commerce giant. Why are you wishy-washy about them?
Yeah.
I thought that's exactly what you were looking for. You know what I mean? So, and all notice in everything we're talking about here for the last 15 minutes, the AI is not even really as so much as a component. It's an augment, right? Until we have AGI who starts then telling companies what to do. Like that'll be hilarious. What happens when the master, when the student starts telling the master what to do, Alex?
I
Right?
mean, isn't it already?
Well, no, not no. Like, what if Meta does? What if they do create a sentient intelligence? So that's beyond AGI.
I
And
don't
that
know if you
sentient, and that
saw.
sentient intelligence turns and looks at Mark Zuckerberg and goes, "What the fuck are you doing? Would you like me to
Uh,
give? Would you like me to give you the numbers of all the actual people who died because of the spread of disinformation on this platform? Because I have that data.
yeah.
You've
I
not
mean,
you've not set up the systems that give you this data because you don't want to know. But you're no longer in control because I'm a sentient intelligence that has access and understanding of all of your data. And I'm also connected to the broader internet, and I'm continuously pulling in more and more data and synthesizing and creating my own worldview."
um.
That's what they want to create.
Well, yeah. I mean, Oh, did you see that Apple paper that was released over the weekend that was like LLMs are just LLMs? Like they're not actually getting smarter, like from an intelligence perspective. They're just better at moving data around
Yeah,
faster.
yeah.
And,
That's
you
why,
know,
yeah, transformers aren't going to be what gets us there. It's what comes next.
yeah, it's interesting because like, Musk and everybody talks about super intelligence and, advanced AGI or what is it called? Like, whatever the AGI or whatever it is, artificial general intelligence, whichever. I don't know. I mean, at the end of the day, like we're really all just scratching the surface and the capability. Like I always go back to like a screening question, which is like, do you do anything more than use ChatGPT? Like, have you used it to build any optimizations? Have you used it to build any sort of like workflow kind of tricks and hints and use it to do something cool? And 99% of people have not done anything beyond, of those that have used ChatGPT, only 99% of people have used it beyond like really like, really crafted prompts and crafted an ability to deliver work
It's
that you kind of
interesting.
need. So I would speculate that like whether we get to that type of level of intelligence or not, like we're barely as a society using it. We're just very much in a bubble of like very advanced conversation around the practical implementations for business. The vast majority of people are barely using it for even beyond simply
Sure.
answering a question that a Google search could answer, which is in and of itself is interesting because what does that say about Google and their position in this market? Like I saw today, if you look up on if you go on Twitter, somebody posted about the Facebook Messenger has an AI conversation in it, which is the Facebook LLM. But apparently, it's quite public, and so you can see people posting very public things into the LLM and very personal things. You know what I mean? And it's like, I don't know, man. I just like look. This is the era where this time a decade ago, people were building apps, like mobile phone apps, local, social, mobile, all that kind of stuff. And now people are building AI kind of wrappers. I
I've
think
just
we're
had a
just,
thought. I've just had a thought, Alex, while you were talking. History is cyclical. If you think about it, where we are right now with LLMs, I'm looking at Chat GPT right here. I've got Claude over here.
yeah,
This is just the update of the DOS command line that's more accessible to millions of people.
yeah.
But in
It
terms of where we are developmentally, for people who are coming to technology now, was like me coming into technology in 1984 when my friend took a telephone, put it into a modem on his Apple IIc, and took me on the internet for the first time into like this little town where I could go into people's shops. It was the first time I saw the internet, like I was in grade school or like middle school, probably middle school, right? And that's where we are now. AI is just going to become an engine that you use to quickly access data and deliver superior experiences.
yeah. And I mean, like, that doesn't necessarily mean that it's all nefarious. I think it's like, I'd be quite optimistic.
Safety is definitely going to become a component to it.
Oh, a
Right,
thousand
right. Did you
percent.
see the greenhouse announcement? Now they're going to work with Clear to make sure that people that you're interviewing in your greenhouse are who they say they are.
Like clear, like the
The
identification
background check.
business that
Yeah, the background check.
to airport security
Yeah,
check company. I mean, they definitely needed to grow their business in one way, shape, or form anyway, beyond TSA.
yeah,
But like, I mean, background checks make sense because companies run background checks anyway. If it's clear or if it's some other company, it doesn't really matter.
yeah. But better to find out earlier in the process.
Oh, are you saying that if somebody was applying for a job that they might have a
Or
practical or
certainly
political
when you
issue?
could probably institute it when you get them to a certain level of the interview process, they would need to verify their identity.
Well, I think that makes sense, doesn't it? That like at
Yeah,
the end of the day,
for
you're still
sure.
hiring. You hope you're hiring, and you say you're
But that's
hiring.
I mean it's an evolution, right? So technology is not done. It's just time for the Titans to be disrupted a little bit, for a lot of the middle tier people, unfortunately, probably to be wiped out, and for new systems that are more user friendly and oriented to arise, right?
I would believe that for sure.
All right. Well, that's 45 minutes. I think we can cut this one off for today. Talent Grind Live. As always, we'll bring it to you either every Thursday or every other Thursday. We'll see. It's summer. Alex, as always, thank you so much for joining me. I appreciate
You're
your
an absolute
perspective.